This is Hockey Talk, episode number 6, where we talk everything hockey. I am John.
And I'm Mike.
And let's go. First topic, Mike, is the playoff format for the NHL. Before 2013-14, it was a 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, and so on. It was a conference format at the time. I really liked it that way. Now it is some weird hybrid divisional wild card playoff format, blah, blah, blah. I did some digging, Mike, and some GMs would like to change it back or at least have a look at a proposal. This includes Cam Neely from the Bruins and Luc Robitaille from the Kings. Of course, there are some other GMs who like the current format, Kyle Dubas from the Penguins and Jim Rutherford from the Canucks. They'd like to keep it the same way. But the majority of GMs would like to change it or at least look at proposals. 8 GMs wanted to remain anonymous when they were asked this. One of those GMs said, going back to a 1 versus 8 system is just simplicity's sake for our fans. So, I mean, that kind of all makes sense. And I got all this information from something called The Atlantic, who conducted a phone interview with all these GMs. And I'm going to post the link to this in the description and underneath. Mike, what is your take on all of this? Is this just one big mess or what?
I like the 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, so on myself. I find that it's more of an advantage for the top team that finishes higher in the standings, in which I think they should have. Playing against a strong team where, the Rangers are going to get the Capitals, which is what should be the case,
Right.
whether it was 1 versus 8 or not. But the Florida Panthers are going to get Tampa Bay when they should probably be playing the Islanders if you were to look at it as a 2 versus 7. So a little bit of a disadvantage for them, I think, as Tampa Bay should be a stronger team than the Islanders. But playoff hockey, you just kind of never know at times. So
That's true. You just never know. I mean, anything's possible in the playoffs. We've seen crazy upsets before, like you mentioned in one of our other shows, Columbus and Tampa. And
right,
not only did Columbus beat Tampa, but they beat them in 4 games straight.
yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you, Mike. I mean, I really don't like this hybrid system that we have now, but I can understand why they changed it. I mean, they said that they wanted to bring some sort of, just between teams, like some sort of, what's the word I'm looking for, Mike?
Well, I think they want to keep like a rivalry within
A
the
rivalry,
division.
yeah. And
So,
it's
but
also supposed to help with travel too, isn't it?
it's supposed to
But
help a little bit with travel as well. But I
but does
mean,
it?
I mean, I'm sure that they've got the budget to do some traveling, but I think that most fans prefer the 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, as opposed to what the current format is. And as you said, some of the GMs and even some of the players have chimed in too and said that they would prefer that as well. And then there are others that said they like it the way it is too. So I mean, who knows what they're going to do? I would like to see the change back, but ultimately, I guess it'll be Gary Bettman's decision. And
Right.
he already said too this week that they're not going to have more than 16 teams in the playoffs. He was pretty adamant about it too. So I don't see that changing, I guess. Not under his rule. So unless he retires and someone else takes over and decides differently.
Now, sometimes when we do our podcast, we hear your pups in the background, barking and stuff, which is
Yeah.
fine. But I'm just wondering now, which pup is that that's
That's
talking to us?
Paxx. Yeah.
Pax, and
Yeah.
does Pax watch hockey with you guys?
No, he's not one. He's more interested in chewing on his bones or his toys as opposed to watching hockey. So
And before we go on with the hockey, and I know I said we talk everything hockey, but this is a good chance just to talk about the dogs a little bit. Now, what is it that you do with the dogs? Because
what?
you do something, right? Like, why do you have these dogs?
Well, I volunteer with the Hearts of the North Dog Rescue, amongst other
Right.
rescues. But with this rescue, we foster some dogs until they get their permanent home. We, help out with the transports, and we've driven dogs from here to St. John, here to Truro, you name it, here to Halifax. So, and here being Moncton. So, you know, providing the food for the dogs. So I go pick that up at all the pet stores in town. Anything that was, you know, returned or bags that were damaged and that sort of stuff, they donate to us. So, yeah, so we got 3 foster dogs currently. 4 of our dogs were foster dogs, which we ended up adopting, and then our other one, which is Paxx, we hear in the background a little bit. He's the one that we had originally got when we first got dogs. So
Right, right. So when our listeners, when they hear the dogs in the background, just realize that it's for a totally good cause, and
yeah,
we certainly don't mind on our show. The dogs are allowed to speak in the house, and we don't mind one bit. So
yeah. So I mean, with 8 of them, one of them's gonna have something to say, I guess, at least.
absolutely, absolutely, and maybe I'll put in the notes, the rescue that you associate with
Yeah, you
there, just so
can,
people
and
know.
people can check them out on Facebook. They have their, you know, their pages there, so you can go and check to see what dogs are available for adoption and all that. So
Absolutely.
it's great.
Absolutely. And I probably should have put that at the end, but oh well, too bad. So, all right.
Yeah,
Our
yeah.
second topic is Mike, let's go over who you think is going to come out of the matchups from the first round of the playoffs. I mean, I'm sure our listeners would like some reasons for who you think is going to come out. Now, I'm just going to name some of these teams off and we can talk about them a little bit. So, let's stick with the Eastern Conference first off.
All right,
We have the Florida Panthers playing the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, in earlier episode, you said in the Eastern Conference, Tampa Bay was one of the scary teams that maybe some other teams should not be too anxious to play.
right.
So, Florida Panthers, obviously the higher ranked team here, but that doesn't mean squadouche potentially in the playoffs. What do you think?
I still think that Florida will win the series, but I think they're going to have a tough go at it. I think it's probably going to go 7 games. I just think that, you know, with Florida having some of their guys coming back from injury, Verhage
Right?
just came back last game. I believe Ekblad is supposed to play in game 1. So I think that them getting healthy, unless they're playing hurt, I think they still have a bit of an advantage just because of the depth that they have, a little bit more than Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is kind of a top 2 line team, and I think Florida is a good matchup because they're a little more physical. So I think Tampa playing against a physical team is going to be a little bit of a challenge for them, but I still think it's going to go 7 games.
All right. Well, I agree. I think that Florida's got the edge here, but like we said, and we keep on saying, anything is possible. It could certainly go the other
Oh,
way.
absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised to see Tampa win, but
Right.
I'll pick Florida in 7.
All right. Well, now next is one of my favorite matchups, of course, sticking with the East, the Boston Bruins and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Being the big Toronto fan, Mike, do I have a hope of my Toronto Maple Leafs going to the second round?
It's all going to come down to their goaltending. And if I was putting money on one team's goaltending over another, unfortunately, it would be Boston. So I, it's going to be a close series, I think. Possibly another 7 game series. I'm going to pick the Bruins, much to your dismay, I'm sure, but
I'm
only
really
because
upset.
only because I think they have the edge in nets if they do their goalie rotation the way they have done it all year. I think if they go with one goalie like they did last year, which did not work for them, I think they'll see the same result this year. So if they stick to their goalie rotation, I think it's Boston in 7. If they don't, I think Toronto could maybe pull it out.
Okay. Well, of course, I'm going to disagree with you here, Mike, and I'm going
I
to pick Toronto in
suspected.
7. So, but that's okay. That's all right. We're allowed to disagree. Sticking with the East, we have the New York Rangers and the very surprising Washington Capitals, Mike. Like you said earlier, a 1 versus 8 scenario, the way it really should be. I can't believe the Washington Capitals are in the playoffs. Like we said on another show, their plus minus and their top 15 goal scorers is atrocious. But
Yeah.
somehow they did it, and they weren't even really hot going down the stretch. So, what do you
No,
think, Mike?
I'm going to pick the Rangers. in 4 or 5 games. I don't see this being a long series. The Rangers are far too talented to have this go any longer than 5 games, I think. So I think the Rangers take this one with relative ease.
Okay, well, I agree. I can't imagine this going more than 5 games, so I'm going to agree with you and pick the Rangers. Okay, and the last series on the conference, the Carolina Hurricanes against the New York Islanders, who have done really well their last 15 and 20 games.
Yeah,
What do you think?
it's going to be another close series, I think. I'm going to pick Carolina in 6, only because I think they have a better offensive team than the Islanders have. So, but I do think it's going to be a close series, probably low scoring. As you know, the Islanders' style of play has always been relatively low scoring.
Yes.
So I don't see that changing that much in this series. I'd be surprised if it did, but I'll pick Carolina in 6.
Now, do you give just on a side note here? Do you give Patrick Waugh any of the credence to this, to them getting in the playoffs here, the New York Islanders? I mean, they look really strong coming down the stretch.
I wouldn't be surprised if he was one of the candidates for the Jack Adams Award this year.
Right, right.
He's come in, done a great job, got the team in. And I mean, their goaltending was a little hit or miss this year. Their number one, Sorokin, didn't have a great year, so they had to rely on Varlamov, who has been fairly shaky the last year or two. So they managed to get the job done somehow. So
Okay, yeah,
all the credit to them.
yeah. I like I said, I like the Islanders. I don't know. I think they could maybe upset Carolina here somehow. I don't know how. I know it doesn't look like it on paper. I'm going to take the Islanders in 7 here, and just to be a little bit controversial, we'll see what
Well,
happens. So,
it's possible. I think it's possible the Islanders win, but it's going to be tough. So
yeah,
we'll
it's
see.
definitely going to be tough. All right. Well, let's go over to the Western Conference. All kinds of action here, Mike. Now, we have the Vancouver Canucks and the Nashville Predators. Nashville played really well down the stretch. Vancouver, maybe 500, a little better than 500 down the stretch. What do you think of this matchup here?
I think that it's going to be another close series, even though Vancouver finished ahead of them by a decent amount. I think
Yeah,
Nashville, the way they've played the last couple of weeks, is something that gives them a chance to keep this going. They played well. Vancouver's the favorite. They just got Demko back, and that's the last couple of games. So this is one of the tougher series for me to call. I will probably say that it's probably going to be Vancouver, but probably in 6 or 7 games. I think it's going to be a longer series.
right. Yeah, I agree. I think, well, I hope Vancouver wins. Of course, I want some Canadian teams to win. I hope they win in
Yeah.
7 or 6, and we'll see what happens. Well, our next series is the Winnipeg Jets against the Colorado Avalanche. I think this is a really interesting matchup. Mike, what do you think of this matchup?
It is. Winnipeg finished up the season strong. After the trade deadline, they kind of slumped a little bit, but they finished fairly strong the last handful of games. I, I still got to go with Colorado, as I foresee them getting to the Cup final this year.
Right,
So, I mean, Winnipeg, it's all going to come down to Connor Hellebuck. If he's on his game, it's going to be a long series. Uh, and I mean, he's been a Vezina Trophy candidate this year, so I think that it's going to be a close one, closer than what I was expecting it to be. But I'm still going to go with Colorado in 6 or 7 games.
right. I agree. But like you said, the Jets goaltending, if Hellebuck gets hot,
Yeah,
it's possible. He is very shut down. When he's on his game, he can really shut teams down.
and that's it. Like, if I was picking based off of goaltending, I would pick Winnipeg. However, it's not just all the goaltending in this series when you're looking at the firepower that Colorado has, and if they get it going, they're
Right.
kind of relentless. So
And Rantanen is back, correct?
He's back. Yeah, he played the
Yeah.
last two games of the season. So
Right, right. So and I mean, he finished with over 100 points. So, I mean, there's
yeah.
a lot of scoring on that Colorado team. We'll see if Hellerbuck can shut the door on them. It's going to be very interesting.
Hmm.
Okay, continuing on with the Western Conference, Mike, we have the Dallas Stars and the Vegas Golden Knights, the defending Stanley Cup champions. Do the defending Stanley Cup champions have any shot against the mighty Dallas Stars, Mike? What do you think?
I think that it's going to be a tough go for them to beat Dallas with the depth that Dallas has. The goaltending has been maybe not the greatest, as good as last year. However, I think that Ottinger is primed to have a good playoffs. Dallas's defense matches up very similarly to Vegas, so I think that it's going to be close because both teams have three scoring lines. It's going to be a close series. Going to pick Dallas in 6 or 7 games for this one.
Right, right. Yeah, I'm going to pick Dallas in 7 games here. I like Vegas a lot, but Dallas is just so deep.
Yeah,
It's unreal. Do you think maybe Mark Stone can affect Vegas's chances here? I really like Mark Stone. I
I,
mean, I've never seen anybody knock the puck out of the air like that guy does.
I think he's going to be back for the first game. I think that they worked themselves around the salary cap a little bit, so I think he'll be playing the first game, and he's a threat both ways. He's
He
great on the
is.
power play. He's great on the penalty kill, which is a little surprising because he's not the fastest guy, but he's the skill level is there. So, and they added at the deadline some great assets to their team. So it's going to be a close series, but I don't know if they can overcome Dallas. I just think Dallas is going to have a great series, and this could be a good year for them.
Okay, and finally, the last series that we will go over, Mike, is the Edmonton Oilers versus the LA Kings. I think this could be an interesting matchup here. Does Edmonton have enough firepower to blast LA out of the water? What do you think?
I think they do. I'd be surprised if the Kings won two games in this series. I think Edmonton's probably going to roll over them pretty quickly. Um, my prediction is probably 5 games, and if LA gets lucky, they might be able to stretch it to 6. But I think that the Oilers' firepower is going to be it's going to be too much. I'm not a fan of the goaltending in LA, and I think that's
Hmm.
gonna
Yep.
hurt them. I mean, these guys play decent this year, but the track record, it's just not there. So, not saying that Stuart Skinner's track record is much better. However, when you're looking at the offense, I'd rather have Stuart Skinner's offense than the LA Kings offense. So,
Right, right. Well, I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to pick Edmonton I'm going to pick Edmonton in 6 games. So I hope that they can win. So now, saying all of this, Mike, I just want to bring up one more thing before we end the show here this evening. I'm sorry about your Flyers, man.
yeah.
We talked about it on the show. They were in the playoff spot for a long time, and they just lost too many games down the stretch.
Well, when you lose 8 games in a row, in a tight race. I mean, we were somewhat lucky that some of the other teams weren't winning, but it allowed the teams further down to catch up. So,
Right.
you know, uh, if they had won 2 out of those 8 games, they'd be in right now. So it just goes to show that you can't finish a season on a streak like that and expect to get in, and nor should they deserve to get in when they lose 8 games in a row. And it's
That's right.
unfortunate because they did play well for 72 games, and then the last 10 were not good. So with that being said, they overperformed this year, which is not great for draft position. However, it's good to show that the rebuild is progressing a little quicker than what was anticipated. So.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, Mike, is there anything else you want to go over in tonight's episode?
No, nothing particular, but I'm just curious to see how things go the first few games of the playoffs to see if we're close on some of our thoughts, or completely out to lunch. Who knows?
Well, after about 3 or 4 games of the first series is played, we're going to do another episode and we can
Right.
kind of reevaluate where we think we're sitting. I imagine a lot of series will be like 2-1 or three to
Yeah, I
one or
think
whatever.
most games
So,
will have most of the series will have 3 games in at that point because I believe they start Saturday night, so
yes.
three,
Yeah.
maybe 4 games, but yeah,
Right. We'll do another episode and we'll see how we're doing anyway. So,
right.
uh, so let us know, folks, in the comments where we went wrong because I know we certainly did because we can't predict the future, that's for sure. And that's what the comments are for. Like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you next time, guys. See you later.
So yeah.